What would you do if the one person you trusted most turned against you at the moment you needed them the most? I stood at my father's funeral, the weight of grief pressing against my chest, unaware that the real pain was yet to come. The air smelled of damp earth and wilting flowers, and the overcast sky mirrored the heaviness in my heart. My name is Clara, and this is the story of how I lost my brother, Ethan, but found something far more valuable me pride. Dad's funeral was held on a chilly October afternoon in our small hometown of Willow Creek. The cemetery was a patchwork of old headstones, each one a silent witness to lives long gone. I stood by the open grave, clutching a single white rose, the kind Dad used to grow in his garden. He was a quiet man, a carpenter who built things with his hands and love in his heart. His death from a sudden heart attack at 62 left a void I couldn't comprehend. Ethan, my older brother by 4 years, stood beside me, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. We hadn't spoken much since Dad's passing, but I assumed grief had built that wall between us. I was wrong. The service was simple, just as Dad would have wanted. Friends and neighbors spoke of his kindness, his knack for fixing anything broken furniture, hearts, even old feuds. I delivered the eulogy, my voice cracking as I recounted how Dad taught me to ride a bike, his calloused hands steadying the handlebars. Ethan didn't speak. He just stared at the coffin, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. I thought he was holding back tears. I should have known better. After the burial, we gathered at Dad's Housia modest two-story with creaky floors and a porch that sagged like it was tired. It was the only place I'd ever called home. Dad's was to be read that evening, and I expected it to be straightforward. He'd always said the house and his savings would be split evenly between Ethan and me. Fair's fair, he'd say, his eyes twinkling. But as the lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses, I felt a prickle of unease. "Clara, Ethan," Mr. Hargrove began, "your father's was updated 6 months ago." My stomach twisted. Updated? Dad never mentioned changes. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes sharp, almost hungry. The lawyer continued, "The house, the savings, and the carpentry shop are to go solely to Ethan. Clara, you're left with his personal belongings, his tools, books, and garden journals." The room spun. I gripped the armrest of the worn couch, my knuckles white. "There must be a mistake," I whispered. "Dad wouldn't do this. He knew how much the house meant to me, how I'd planned to keep his garden alive, to raise my future kids in those familiar walls." Ethan said nothing, but a faint smirk tugged at his lips. That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a betrayal. "Ethan, did you know about this?" I asked, my voice trembling. He met my gaze, unblinking. "Dad and I talked. He thought I'd make better use of it. You're always off dreaming, Clara. I've got plans." Plans? Ethan had been drifting for years, bouncing between jobs, always borrowing money from Dad. I was the one who stayed, who helped Dad in the shop, who learned his craft. And now, he'd taken everything. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the room felt suffocating. Mr. Hargrove handed me a letter in Dad's handwriting, sealed with wax. "He wanted you to have this," he said softly. I stumbled outside, the letter burning in my hand, and sat on the porch steps. The words blurred through my tears as I read. "Clara, my heart, you don't need things to carry me with you. You got my spirit. Ethan needs the house to find his way. Trust yourself. Love, Dad." I crumpled the letter, anger surging. Trust myself? Dad's words felt like a cruel joke. Ethan needed the house. He'd sell in a heartbeat, I was sure. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Mrs. Delaney, our neighbor, her silver hair glowing under the porch light. She wasn't at the will reading, but her presence felt like a lifeline. "Clara," she said, sitting beside me, "your dad told me something last spring. He was worried about Ethan, said he was in debt, mixed up with some bad folks. He thought giving him the house might keep him grounded. Her words hit like a thunderbolt, a twist I hadn't seen coming. Dad hadn't favored Ethan out of spite or neglect, done it out of fear for him. Mrs. Delaney squeezed my hand. He knew you'd be okay. You're stronger than you think. I wanted to believe her, but the sting of being overlooked burned deep. Ethan's smirk flashed in my mind, and I wondered if Dad's plan would even work. The next morning, Ethan was already in the house, boxing up Dad's things like he owned the place. "You could take what's yours and go," he said, not looking at me. His voice was cold, like I was a stranger. I walked through the house, touching the walls Dad built, the shells he carved. Every corner held a memory Dad teaching me to sand wood, us laughing over burnt pancakes. Ethan didn't care about any of it. To him, this was just property, a ticket out of his troubles. I could have fought. I could have hired a lawyer, contested the will, dragged Ethan through court. But as I stood in Dad's workshop, holding his old hammer, I realized something. This house, these things, they weren't Dad. His love was in me, in the way I saw the world, in the pride I carried. Ethan could take the house, but he couldn't take that. I packed Dad's tools, his journals, and a few photos into my car. Ethan watched from the porch, his arms crossed. "You're really walking away?" he asked, almost mocking. I straightened, meeting his gaze. "I'm not walking away, Ethan. I'm choosing what matters." His smirk faded, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. I didn't wait for a response. I got in my car and drove, the weight of loss still heavy but somehow lighter. Months later, I heard through Mrs. Delaney that Ethan sold the house. He'd moved to the city, chasing some get-rich scheme that predictably fell apart. I didn't gloat. I was too busy building my own life. With Dad's tools, I started a small carpentry business, crafting furniture that told stories, just like he did. His journals inspired a community garden in Willow Creek, where kids learned to plant roses like he had. I didn't need the house to keep Dad alive. Pride isn't loud or vengeful. It's quiet, steady, like the oak tree by Dad's grave. Ethan tried to take everything, but he couldn't touch what truly mattered. I walked away, not with nothing, but with everything that made me who I am. And in that choice, I found peace.